Hey everyone, and welcome back to another video. And in this one we're going to be doing this black cat using white charcoal on black paper. I have got a black cat tutorial using the more usual black charcoal and white charcoal on toned paper, so you can have a look at that as well. It does seem to do quite well, so I think a lot of people do look to see how to draw a black cat. I think black animals can be quite challenging for some people. So anyway, when I did this one, when I was commissioned to do this one, I thought it's a good opportunity to do another one but in a different style. So you can see the outline were already applied, so I'm just going to commence with adding some white charcoal pencil to anywhere that's basically got any highlights and light areas. So places where you've got light reflecting off fur and also lighter features such as its eyes, and I'm just going to get all that in a minute. And yeah, it's going to look a little bit harsh and a bit messy, but that's all going to be sorted out at a later stage. Be careful to not cover all that black paper up, because that black paper is going to be doing a lot of this work for you. If you look at the reference photo, a lot of parts of that cat do actually look black and you can't really see anything going on in them, and that's basically what your paper's going to do for you. Even in your lighter areas, you don't want to be pressing on too hard with your charcoal pencil at this stage, because you will want to be layering up, so you don't want to be taking away all your tooth at an early stage. And plus, when you start blending it out, you don't want it to be too white, because it's not going to look like a black cat anymore if you do. So you can see where I have applied the whites, you can still see a lot of black paper showing through it. Obviously that won't be the case once it's been blended, but it will tone the white down a little bit, so it'll not be quite as bright. When you're applying the fur texture, you've always got to make sure that you take note of the direction of the growth of the fur, and then make sure that your strokes are going in the same direction as that. You don't want to just be doing it in random directions, otherwise it's just not going to look like fur. So even when I'm applying this first layer and when I blend it, I still stick to doing all that in the direction that the fur actually grows in. So now I'm ready to come with blending stump, and now you'll see a major transformation take place as I go over the cat with this blending stump. All of a sudden it'll just go from looking like this to looking like it's finished, but obviously it's not finished, but it just takes a massive step forward just blending it with that blending stump, as you can see. All of a sudden we're getting the nice soft fur look that you get on a cat, as opposed to the harsh look that it had before when I'd just got the pencil on there. And also the graduations between light and dark, and also notice how the actual charcoal is darkened a little bit, because obviously you're spreading it out a little bit and blend it into paper, so it's not as concentrated, and that's why it's not as bright as when you first apply it. Once all that blending's finished, there's some areas that might have ended up a little bit too light because of just the blending the white charcoal around, and it's not the most precise thing, so they might just want to take some of that off. So I just come in with a kneaded eraser and just take some of that off in places to darken areas again. Obviously there's some details that you want to try and get back that you can't really do with a kneaded eraser, so I might have to come in with a black charcoal pencil, for some smaller refined things. I do it on the rims of eyes and nostrils and places like that. I try to keep it to a minimum, but it's usually necessary somewhere along the line. So now I'm back with a white charcoal pencil, and I'm just going to go back over the areas again. I'm going to go on to the eyes and give them a few highlights. The eyes are not too bright here because the cat were not looking upwards into light, so there's not much light hitting them, so to speak, so they're not overly bright. And then moving on to fur, just adding some whites in areas where you've got most light reflecting off at fur. You don't want to cover everything up underneath, like all the other areas, the previous layer where you added some lights. You want to leave some of that showing through, so you get less and less the lighter you go. When you first start doing drawings like this and you want to make it look a little bit more dramatic than in photograph, sometimes it can be a bit confusing as to how to go about your values. So a little tip for that, if you've got a software like Photoshop, what I do is I just bring them up in there. You just reduce the exposure a little bit to make it darker, and then increase the contrast so that it makes the highlights sort of stand out more and the darks more dark, so it's a little bit more contrast than what you might have in your general reference photo. I find you also have to darken the whole thing a little bit as well, otherwise it can just end up like too much. So I just darken it a little bit and then add some contrast. I don't have to do it myself so much anymore because I can just tell how things need to be, and it just comes with time and practice. But when you're new to it, it is something that can help you to get your values correct, to make it look a little bit more exciting as a white on black drawing, that is, so it's not too flat. I will be doing a real-time version of this tutorial for my Patreon, which I'm going to be launching very soon, so keep an eye out for that. It's already got quite a few tutorials on it, and also a lot of real time of actual acrylic paintings as well. And I also plan to do other things like posting reference photos for people to use that I've taken myself, and other ideas as well as I think of them. It's one of them things where I think you've just got to get started, and then you can improve it as you go along as well, and get more feedback from people as to what they'd like to be in there. And if it does well, then I'll be able to start doing works other than just commissions, so I'm going to have a little bit more freedom as to subject matter and that kind of thing, so I can put a little bit more variety on here as well. Just going to add some cheeky whiskers to this cat using that white charcoal pencil. You can see now I've added them lighter values, that it's given it extra punch and made it look a little bit more exciting to look at. And all I need to do now really is some final touches, maybe a little bit of dabbing with the blending stump and coming in with the black charcoal pencil for a few darker details and white charcoal pencil for a few little details. So now I'm going to add some bench for this cat to lay on, and I'm just going to put in some lines with a ruler because my ability to draw straight lines is no more advanced than any non-artist. So here comes the ruler, and then it's a case of just applying some wood textures with the white charcoal pencil, so some like wavy squiggly-ish lines that are not too tidy, and then adding the odd wood knot in there. Just covering it all lot because in reference photo you can see that it's quite light, and obviously it'll give a nice contrast against the black of the actual cat itself. And once all that's applied, I'm just going to come in with blending stump as per usual. I'm just going to blend it all. Once all that's blended in, I'll just come back in with the white pencil again, and I'll just go on top of that and add another layer of those lines on top, a lot lighter this time. And I'm just taking particular care around edges at cat as well, because you want the edges at cat to be quite defined against it. You see me doing a little bit more blending there. And then I come round edges at cat with some black pencil so that I can sort of overlap the wood with the cat, so that the cat stands out against the wood and it doesn't look like it's sort of blending into it, so to speak. You'll also notice end of them whiskers, you'll notice that I actually did the ends of them in black, whereas the bases of them coming off at cat were done in white, and the reason being is that against the black cat, the highlights on the whiskers would be most pronounced, so they look sort of white. But then you put them against a light background like this bench, and then the highlights on the whiskers no longer show up, so they look like black whiskers. So they look white against a black background, but black against a lighter background. I'm just adding some more black and some white pencil to add a little bit of extra texture to this wood. And one thing about doing wood is to try not to think too much about it. Just basically sort of draw what you see, the kind of texture that you see, without agonising too much exactly how it's meant to look. I always keep it quite loose in these drawings anyway. So I think I'm finally coming towards the end of this drawing, and I just want to give you a big thanks if you watched all the way through to end and for watching it at all. And like I say, just keep an eye out for my Patreon if you want to see more in-depth tutorials and you'd like to support my work a little bit further than YouTube. I'll just finish off the final touches for this drawing and then show you the final result, and then that'll be it from me, so I'll see you in my next video. Bye!